I have one more person I'd like to call upon for this second panel. I'm doing this to accommodate our ranking member, Mr. Cassidy, since he is one of his constituents. So I'd like to call on Mr. Cresson, Executive Director and CEO of the Coastal Conservation Association, Louisiana. Could you please come up and take a seat at the table for second panel? All right. And please proceed with your testimony.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me to testify here today. My name is David Cresson. I am the Executive Director of the Coastal Conservation Association of Louisiana. Our Louisiana chapter of CCA has more than 15,000 members and volunteers. Our national organization has about 100,000 in 17 coastal states. We are involved in a number of conservation projects, including building artificial reefs across our coast that contribute to the restoration efforts and create fish habitats for species that are targeted by anglers. Serving as Executive Director of CCA Louisiana is my job, but it's much more than that to me. I am a Louisiana native who was brought up fishing, hunting, and enjoying the Louisiana outdoors. Many of my fondest memories growing up in New Orleans are of the time spent on the water with my dad trying to catch trout and redfish. I grew up dreaming of the day that I could own my own boat and fishing camp so that I could treat my own children to those same wonderful times. A few years ago, I was able to purchase a fishing boat and later a modest camp in Plaquemines Parish, near the mouth of the river. Until the oil spill, my family and I spent many of our weekends at our little camp, fishing and enjoying the time together. In an instant, that has been taken from us. Now the area around our camp is saturated by oil and closed to fishing, so that what we have now is a boat we can't use and a camp we can't use. An important part of our family activities have been taken from us. Now, if my situation were an isolated one, there wouldn't be much to discuss. The problem is that my situation is one of thousands like it across our state. Recreational fishing is much more than an occasional trip to the coast. You will see in my written testimony that an extended Gulf-wide recreational closure will cost us billions of dollars and thousands of jobs. These are friends and families who have built lives over decades that are being destroyed as the oil overtakes our coast. We simply don't know if the many small businesses that rely on recreational fishermen using their services will survive. Studies will be required to learn the harm that the oil has inflicted on marine life. Programs will be needed to reverse that damage. CCA will be a partner in conducting these studies and we will be involved in the rebuilding effort. Moving forward, CCA believes there are two areas that must be addressed in the fisheries recovery: new artificial reefs and a large fish hatchery. Over the years, CCA has been active in coordinating construction of numerous artificial reefs along our coast. These reefs serve as habitats for all sorts of marine life, including the species targeted most by our anglers. Our reef projects stretch from the eastern coast to the western coast of Louisiana, and as part of the rebuilding effort, we propose that many new artificial reefs, using recycled, safe materials, be constructed across our coast to attract the type of marine life that is being killed or chased away by the oil spill. The project would cost an estimated $20 million. Along with our Wildlife and Fisheries Department, we also propose building a state-of-the-art fish hatchery in Louisiana. Before the spill, Louisiana's estuaries were some of the richest in the world, meaning there was no need for a hatchery system to supplement fish populations. There is no question that the spill will have an effect on our current fish populations, but an even greater effect on the next several years of species recruitment. Very simply, oily water cannot support fish spawning. Our fish population, and therefore our economy, will be devastated without a hatchery to supplement the process. The project will cost between $50 and $75 million to complete, but that's a drop in the bucket when you consider what's at stake. We need our friends in the federal government to support this project. Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, CCA's reason for existing is to conserve our marine resources. Never in our history have we encountered a man-made disaster such as this, a disaster we anticipate will wreak more damage on our fish resources than any hurricane ever has. Facing adversity is nothing new to the people of Louisiana. Over the years, we've been devastated by hurricanes, floods, and other disasters. Our people have the spirit and the stamina to overcome, but clearly this is not a battle we can win alone. We will need the great resources of the federal government and that of the parties responsible for this disaster to help us. In closing, I have a personal friend who was killed in the explosion on the Deepwater Horizon, a young man whose wife was expecting their second child just days after the accident. I attended his funeral and mourned with his family, still shocked at the unthinkable loss. Over the past several weeks, I have visited the once vibrant marsh and picked up handfuls of thick, sludge-like oil. I have looked into the eyes of fishermen and small businessmen who have a lifetime invested in our coast. I have seen tears in grown men's eyes as they talk about closing their doors. I have seen the disappointment in my own children when I tell them I don't know when we can fish again. On behalf of CCA, my family, and the hundreds of thousands of Louisianians who have made a life on our coast, we need you to help provide the resources that will make it possible for us to one day resume our lives as we once knew them. I thank you for your time.
Mr. Cresson, I have the advantage. I went with you down to Plaquemines Parish to see and speak to the marina owners, and I was struck. So here we see the fishing industry, as Ms. Darter speaks so well of, is devastated. Secondly, we see that the oil and gas is going to be destroyed by the moratorium, with people unable to make their house payments, et cetera. What you're saying is that there's a third leg to that coastal economy, which is the recreational fishing, and that now that third leg may be removed almost as much by perception, perhaps, as well as by spill. Now, that just seems the harder of the three to address. How would you mentioned the hatcheries, the fisheries, any other specific things you would suggest for this kind of more, softer yet incredibly significant source of jobs?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Congressman. You are correct. The recreational fishery is a bit harder to put your arms around because there's so many pieces of it that come from the great sport that we love down in Louisiana. What I would hope for is that this body and the entire federal government consider recreational fishermen and the businesses that rely on them in whatever federal relief package is put out there. You heard Secretary Barham earlier talk about wildlife.
Now, you don't mean me going down to do my annual fish, my catching a bunch of speckled trout with my son. You mean the people that have the marinas,
yes,
the bait shops, et cetera.
Absolutely. And the people that rely on you and your son to go fish. But the marinas, the bait shops, the tackle shops, the $5,000 check that the chairwoman mentioned is simply not cutting it for these guys. They're closing their doors on a daily basis, and even if they get one next month, they will close those doors. There is a perception that our recreational fishery is closed. That is a major problem because the majority of our state waters you are still able to fish. But to answer your question directly, Mr. Congressman, we need to make sure that the federal government and BP recognize the needs of recreational fishermen and this industry when the time comes, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Yes.